World War I was one of the deadliest conflicts the Earth has ever seen. The globe changed dramatically and new countries were both created and destroyed. Since 1299, the Ottoman Empire had ruled parts of Europe, Africa, the Middle East, and Asia. Its feared military was often considered invincible. The ancient empire finally fell. Britain and France partitioned their new land.
At the end of the First World War, the Ottoman Empire was dismantled, and as a result of that, we now have the creation of many of the modern states of the Middle East. Iraq, for example, is a mandated state after the First World War, and also Syria and Lebanon. Essentially, these were trusteeships for imperial powers such as Britain and France, with the idea that over time, these states would be prepared for independence.
But these were imperial powers, not exactly social workers. Their skill was conquering new land.
The people on the ground in the communities of the Middle East were also involved to some extent in the shaping of the boundaries. Colonial powers did not train themselves really to imagine themselves in the footsteps of someone else. That was not what their job was. This was about competition for glory. It was about competition for, for goods. It was about competition for power and, of course, territorial aggrandizement. What's disconcerting, I think, is that certain protests or certain indigenous input was not listened to or embraced at the end of the day. It's hard to be in the mentality of the person on the ground. And I think this is what the Middle East inherited through the history of colonialism.
Since the end of World War I, stability has been elusive in the Middle East. Life in certain parts can be violent.
It is unsurprising that so many of the states in the Middle East continue to grapple with ethnic and sectarian conflict today. The Arab Spring, for example, that's an important story about the Arab Spring. It's about really, people from different parts of the political spectrum kind of calling for a need or a desire to be heard and to be involved in the political decision-making of their country. It's about enfranchising people.
Of course, there is no one cause for the continued conflict.
I think there are also a lot of indigenous and domestic problems as well. So I think it's very facile to say, okay, the colonialists came, and they caused all these problems. I mean, certainly it didn't make things easy, but, looking back over the last 60 years, for example, I think, one has to also assess the domestic factors and indigenous political issues. One of the things that we see happening is a desire for disenfranchised peoples throughout the Middle East, wanting to have a bigger stake in the political system of the region.